Alright everyone, so today we're gonna take another look at one of the champions in the game that most people have and use. Some through invite links, for example, but generally it's also somebody that you will eventually draw simply because it's an epic champion and it's a magic champion. I'm talking about Uugo right now, which is one of the... It's a fantastic debuffer. It's one of the first debuffers that people typically have. So we're going a little bit about what exactly you can do with him, what kind of items you should use, what are the stats priorities for him, looking at some masteries, and also take a closer look at why exactly he is that good. Now, one of the cool things about him right out of the gate is that he's actually a champion that when you get him at the beginning of the game, for example, because you had an invite link that gives him as a free reward, you don't need him on 60 immediately. He's actually very, very useful already way before that if you just have him on 50. At the beginning, one of the problems that you have is that you only have a very limited amount of level 60 champions. He normally doesn't... He's usually not one of the guys that you get to 60 first. But eventually you will get there. And when we're looking at the reviews, for example, there's a reason why he is so high up, especially when we're talking about Hydra, faction wars, but also for arena offense, he can be really, really strong. You will use him in a lot of your dungeons, and there's a couple of reasons as to why exactly that is. Now, one of the things that we have when we're talking about the passive here is that you have, first and foremost, you have your increased speed, you have a block damage on allies, and this is all happening when your last ally gets killed. This is actually one of the things that oftentimes is a little bit misleading. You want to get him tanky, and if you're looking mainly at, let's say, PvE content, for example, it can be quite nice if you have a rather squishy team to have him as a very tanky supporter there. So if your team gets killed, he will get that revive in. It's a really nice bonus that he has. I personally don't think that it is the biggest asset of the champion, but it can be quite nice. But when we're talking about a reviver, normally you want to have somebody, you know, that is a little bit more reliable, that can either revive the entire team. We're talking Arbiter here, for example, but Elva, when it comes to single revives, could be quite useful. And of course, so many others out there. So he's not really a reviver in that sense. You can't actively trigger that. It's just a passive that he has, and it can really win you a run. It can win you a battle in arena, but it shouldn't be the main thing that you're drafting him for. What is, on the other hand, quite nice is that you have the debuff removal on your A3. You have also a heal here, which is quite nice. And obviously, in this case, you have that removal there as well. So the A3 is pretty neat. You have a heal in here that also triggers off the max HP that he has, which immediately, of course, means you want him as hit point heavy as you can make him, which is quite useful. But I think one of the main reasons of why he is actually so popular in a lot of areas, not only arena, but also in the Hydra, is that we have his A2, and his A2 is incredible. So on his A2, you have a block buffs and you have a decreased defense that you apply, and that's actually pretty massive. Especially when we're talking about block buffs in Hydra, that's one of the best debuffs that you can get there, and it's also super useful, of course, everywhere else that you go, being it arena or anything else. When you're starting the game, normally what you want to have in arena, and I went over this in previous videos, is also the decreased defense, which is quite important, because traditionally the idea is that you are starting with a faster lineup. You want to win the speed battle, you want to have a speed lead that boosts your team. Then you have a debuffer like Uugo. He comes in, applies a decreased defense, maybe a weaken in addition to that as well, and then your nukers come in and just obliterate the opponent's team. That's like the best case scenario and what you most of the time are going to opt for. So the A2 here is really, really powerful. And then on top of that, we have a leech on his A1, which is always quite nice. Specifically when you're going up against any kind of bosses where it's a long drawn-out battle, having that leech on the boss can be super useful too. Now, it's oftentimes a little bit misleading when we're talking about him and the stats that you should go for, because when you look at him, his damage is actually based off attack. And generally speaking, you always want to spec into the main attribute of a champion. Uugo is a bit of an exception here, and one of the reasons is obviously, as already mentioned before, that he heals all allies based on 20% of his own HP. So you really want to go and get as much HP as you possibly can. I have him here on 75,000. Now this is my main account, so he doesn't play a big role there anymore. I think I actually still use him in one of my 3 Hydra teams, and I also use him in faction wars, but he doesn't play the biggest role there. 235 speed, nothing crazy, but fairly decent, so you want to have him as fast as you possibly can, and you want to have some decent accuracy as well. So those are your three biggest stats. You want to deal with HP, speed, and accuracy. Accuracy so that he can land his debuffs. You want speed, because first of all, you want him to go as early as possible, but also as many times as possible. And then HP has two factors. A, you increase his heal, but more importantly, you want him to survive. So this is going to be fairly important for you. And that should also be reflected in the rest of your choices. So when we're talking about the sets that we have on him, Perception is pretty much made for him. I mean, at the end of the day, when you're talking about the Perception set, you have the increased accuracy, you have the speed bonus on top of this, so you get a couple of decent pieces. HP percentage chest, HP percentage gloves. In this case, I have defense, so I could boost his HP even further. He survives, he's fine, but if I wanted to really go all in and get him to, I don't know, 100,000 hit points, then I would probably go into an HP banner, I would go into HP gloves, trying to get the ascendancy bonuses also re-rolled a little bit. But as I said before, while he is still important, he's not the main priority for my account currently. But if you're on an earlier account, then he is absolutely investing some of your top-notch items into him, and then later you can still withdraw that. So make him tanky. That's what the defense gloves do to an extent here, and the rest is, as I said, all about getting him fast and making sure that he survives and has the accuracy. So as you can see, there's still a couple of improvements I could make if he was a priority. My helmet is currently a 5-star, not a 6-star, and I don't have a speed roll on it. In an ideal world, you want to, of course, have speed rolls on pretty much every single one of your items as a substat. In addition to that, we all have also, of course, a defense banner right now. Defense amulet could go again into an HP amulet. I actually think the reason why it's not on HP is that I needed the accuracy hits. And yeah, so I could actually swap that out and get him a little bit more HP there as well. As a banner, I have accuracy here for the reasons already pointed out earlier. I think I already showed the Blessing. Don't have him on a relic, but with the Blessing I actually went into Cruelty. The reason here simply being that he is already somebody that is going to attack the opponent over and over again. That's at least the idea. So he can come in and then reduce the target's defense even more. But you don't have to go into Cruelty. You have a couple of other options, of course, but you could go with him. But generally speaking, I like to have at least one of my champions in a Cruelty Blessing when I'm putting teams together. And having that on a debuffer is always quite nice. If you have a debuffer that on most of his attacks, or all of his attacks, attacks all enemies, that's fantastic. That's even better. But in this case, I have him on Cruelty. And then when we're talking about masteries, I actually went down all the way to accuracy to boost that a little bit further. Went for the defense and the support tree. There's obviously a couple of variations around this where you skip the defense tree and you go straight into offense and then go straight into War Master. If you're using him, let's say, in an early clan boss team where every single little bit of damage that you dish out really matters and you're trying to proc War Master to get some extra damage on the clan boss and get to the highest chest, then that's a factor. But typically when you're talking about Doom Tower or Cursed City, maybe now Grim Forest, you have him as a debuffer, as more of a tank, a healer, a support that helps you out, and therefore defense and support tree are two of the things that are quite useful. You can actually tell from the support tree now too that I expect him a little bit more heavily into accuracy, so I went over through the right path. You could go on the left as well to boost his max HP even further and to also make sure that the heal values are increased. So you definitely have a couple of options on how exactly you put the support tree together with him. It depends a bit on what the use is for you. Are you mainly focusing on the healing aspects? Are you hitting your accuracy maybe even without all of those? That is, at the end of the day, really up to you. But basically, defense and support is usually what you would typically go for with him, and he's going to be a huge asset. So that was a little bit of an overview over Uugo. I hope that helped. Again, there are some things that you can definitely deviate away from, but generally when we're talking about his priority stats, you're looking for HP, you're looking for speed, you're looking for accuracy. You want him obviously on a debuffer blessing if you can, and then with the masteries we just went over those two. But he is fantastic. And initially, as I said, you can leave him at 50. I had on my free-to-play account him on 50 for a long time, and it was totally fine. And then once I had enough damage dealers and others that were leading with 60, I also upgraded him and the epic books and everything works quite well here, so book him out completely. But fantastic champion to have. Hydra is one of the things where you will probably use him the longest, but especially at the beginning of the game, he is just an all-around great champion that you can use in dungeons, that you can use in arena and everywhere else. So if you pulled him, well done, and I hope that helped a little bit to equip him and to have a bit of an idea of what exactly to go for. If you have any additional questions, feel please free to drop them into the comment section, and I'm happy to help if there's anything that I can do. Outside of that, thanks for watching, thanks for making it to the end of the video. It would be awesome if you could drop a thumbs up on it, and I see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.